All right. Thank you so much for doing this today, Shelley. I appreciate your willingness. I was wondering if you would introduce yourself for our audience and let us introduce yourself and then let us know what was it like before you started recovery.
Hi, my name's Shelley. I'm 48 years old and I live in Devon, which is in the southwest of England. We do have a few video problems, so I'm gonna stop and start if I freeze. So I have been in recovery for 1 month and 1 day. Yay! Woo! I cannot express to you how good that feels, really. I have just found food absolutely distressing. Like I say, I'm 48. I first went to Weight Watchers when I was 13 years old. So it's a 35-year history of dieting and just a constant quest, really, to lose weight, to be a weight that people see as acceptable, and it just felt like a huge knot, and people will relate to this. Just what am I doing wrong? Why can I lose weight? Why am I diving on top of chocolate bars? I'm a physiotherapist. I've got a bachelor's degree. I'm studying for a master's degree. So I consider myself educated. And I wonder if that brings its own set of problems, really. I think as we age, we look more for the answer texts, and just the answer wasn't there. And you spend 6 months on a meal replacement diet and that works really well. You get to an accepted weight and people are like, wow, look at you, you're amazing. I mean, I did that in 2022 and I lost 3 stone and that was great. But what I also lost was my mental health alongside it. I work full time, I've got a family, I've got pets, I've got hobbies, and I just couldn't maintain that. And then of course what happens is, I'll just have a sandwich, and then before you know it, you're doing meal replacement. Oh, and I've had a bad day, but it's all right, I'll get back on it tomorrow. And and then before you know it, you're getting further and further away from your diet. And I truly believe that that is sending a generation, look, as I say insane, the camera's going insane. I truly believe that it is sending a generation of people absolutely insane. Like really, I mean, yo-yo dieting. And I think the worst diet for me as a food addict, and I'm happy to say now I've discovered that I'm a food addict, and thank God, the worst diet ever that made me feel like the biggest failure was the eat whatever you want in moderation. That one where you sit and you eat mindfully, and and just know that was the worst thing. I'd start off really, really well, having tiny bits of food and really enjoying them, and before you know it, 3 weeks have passed and I'm eating everything, but I completely forgot the eat when you're hungry and in moderation part, really. So it's just been hell, and I cannot express the amount of wasted hours just sitting on my own, thinking I'm obese, I'm worried I could have a stroke, a heart attack. I don't know what the answer is. I'm just feeling really alone with that as well, really. Why do we all feel so alone? There's millions of us. millions of us. And the wasted money, Molly, oh my God, how much are we spending on diet subscriptions? And, you know, just, I was this close to ringing up and getting a gastric bypass or band. And I come from a family who are food addicts. My brother has had a gastric bypass. My sister has had a gastric bypass. And I was this close. But I think part of me knew, actually, it doesn't work. You know, we see people, don't we? They lose weight and it's great. And then they don't deal with the food addiction side of it. So it's, oh, just eat a little bit here and there. And oh my goodness. Yeah. So just in a word, hell.
Yes. So what was kind of the aha moment or the turning point? Like, what propelled you
Do you know
to
what?
start
I
this
don't
journey?
know. I honestly do not know. How crazy is that? I don't know how I ended up on that Facebook page. I honestly, I have no memory problems, but I have no recollection
Which Facebook
of.
page is it? Was it Vera's, the Sugar Free for
Yeah,
Life?
so I
Okay.
managed to
Yep.
find, thank God, Vera's page. I, in 2021, did really well on the keto diet, and I cannot express how good Diet Doctor is as a website. I think they're amazing. And I used to read, like in the community posts, some people would put, oh, you know, I can't have fat bombs, I'm a food addict. And it would just go over my head, I think. And I even did Bitten's questionnaire and I did Bitten's course, which clearly said I was a food addict, but it just didn't click, and I don't know why. It just didn't click. And I got to that Facebook page and I read some posts and just something just clicked. And I've put a post on there and I describe it as like you've spent years climbing up this big mountain face, and when you finally discover actually it hasn't worked, because I'm addicted to sugar and food and I haven't looked at it from that angle. It just felt like I chucked my rucksack over my back and I was off into the hills, you know, because I can't express the feeling of once you think, my God, of course, that voice in my head saying, have one more, start tomorrow, you know, that is addiction. And I can't fight that. And to realize that actually you do not have a personality flaw, that you are not a weak person, that it is addiction that's been driving, that's just mind-blowing, really. It's just massive.
Yeah. So, okay. So you've been on this journey for the last month. And so, so I'm guessing some of the hardest parts of this are still kind of fresh in your mind. Can you kind of talk about like what have been the hardest bits of this,
I
experience?
actually think the hardest bits are yet to come. And I was thinking this the other day because I realized what was going on. Luckily, I had done keto before. And I think if you've done keto before, you kind of have all the practical steps in. So, I'm not in a position where I can remove everything from the house. I have a daughter, I have a partner, I can keep it out the way, but I can't remove it all. That's just not realistic. So I knew to get in really good fruit and veg and whole grains, and I'd cook some soup, and I really just accepted that it was batten down the hatches, drink plenty of water. But I think, in all honesty, if you've been struggling with it for years and years and years and years, you are so, thank God it wasn't just me being weak. And actually, millions of people are going through this, and there's all these resources. So I accepted that I would feel a bit rough, and I'd got to a point where I'm 48 now, and I'm pretty sure I was getting insulin resistant, because after the last meal replacement diet, I was not on a diet. So when I'm not on a diet, it's like, oh, I'll have this treat, I'll have that treat, I'll have this treat. So I was feeling pretty rough anyway, and sleeping a lot. So the sugar withdrawal, in comparison with feeling so rough over the years, I think you just bear with it, really. So I felt all right about that.
So if the hardest bits you think are still yet to come,
Yeah.
you know, what's kind of like motivating you to stay then on this path? If you think, okay, the hard stuff is still coming, like what is keeping you moving forward at this point?
I am a parent, and I am a much better parent when I am alert. I want to live into my 70s and 80s. I'm very motivated by not having a stroke, not having a heart attack. I just want to feel well, and I'm incredibly motivated by never ever going back to the situation where I'm on my own all weekend thinking, what is wrong with me? So I'm motivated by that. I'm incredibly motivated by mental health. So I'm quite interested in the work that David Wiss is doing, actually, in his Eating for Mental Health, and he's bringing out an app soon, which I'm quite excited about. Can I go off on a tangent? Is that all right? So when I started reading, because I'm very much like you, I'm like, knowledge is power. And once you've grasped, right, I'm a food addict, there's so much more knowledge. And I'm part of the Sweet Sobriety Support Group, and that has taught me not to go down too many diet rabbit holes. And I'm going down a rabbit hole as I speak. But when you first find out you have all this knowledge, I was in Disneyland Paris with my daughter, and I just read something that David Wiss wrote about there's a big link between child adverse events, early trauma, traumas throughout your life, and addictions. And something just clicks, because all through your life you think, well, this happened to me, therefore I'm more likely to be addicted to things, but it doesn't click. And once it clicks, for me, I think because I'm a physio, I want to know, well, why has that happened? So then I'm reading all about how the brain develops and all the neurotransmitters, and the effect that has on dopamine. And I think that's great. But knowledge like that, I think at the start, it's overwhelming, because do you read about the effect on your brain? Do you read about addictions? Do you read about the best diet for yourself? Because most likely I had metabolic disease, so I want to know about that. So all of a sudden you're like, oh, bloody hell, I'm recovering from sugar. You're supposed to relax, but actually I've turned into a human textbook. And is that helpful at this time? So I've parked the link between the two. I'm interested in the craving side of it. So I've signed up for Jennifer's course on craving. So that's going to deal with that side of it. Diet wise, on the Facebook page of Vera's, there's a really good resource at the top. So that's all whole meals, all fruit and veg protein. So I'm just following that diet for now. I'm mindful. I mean, the joke is, this is just ridiculous, isn't it? You spend years trying to lose the weight. you come up your cliff and realize you're in the hills, and then actually I don't really give a shit that I'm 2 stone overweight. That can wait a minute whilst I sort this out, because of I know, right? Fuck's sake. It's ridiculous.
It's not ridiculous. Like when you think about diet culture and what that has done to us as a species in general, right? It's not ridiculous that that's been at the forefront, because for how many years have we who've carried extra body on our weight gone to the doctor, and instead of being treated for our symptoms, they're like, well, lose weight, or you have something going on, and like maybe sleep issues, and they're like, lose weight, right? Like, so often diet culture has shown up and said, well, if you just lose weight, and the ideal has been this thin body, but we also know that there's this thing called TOFI, thin on the outside, fat on the inside. But nobody cared because it was all about this ideal body specific image.
Yeah.
And so that's ingrained. So for you today to be saying like, listen, I don't care.
I know.
2 cents about this 2 extra stone right now. It's about this other piece. That's not ridiculous. That's amazing.
I know, it's amazing. And I have, I've moved around a lot because of work. And if I have an issue, I try and sort it out. So if I'm not feeling well, I'm feeling tired, things in my life are not going great, then I've always sought help through counsellors. And I've even been to counsellors, like ones that specialise in food issues, but it's always been about, let's talk about the past, let's talk about your feelings. And that's not that, when I first went onto the Facebook group, I introduced myself and somebody said, you need to get yourself into therapy. And I'm like, good God, no, I could not think of anything worse at the moment. I don't, I've dealt with the feelings and those emotions. I need to recognize what's going on in my mind, that dopamine is driving it, and just really look after myself now and get really healthy. I'm really excited and I feel really healthy. I had a kiwi the other day and it blew my head off. Do you know, I've even had a kiwi in years, because we're not allowed kiwis. I had a banana. Bloody hell, it was amazing. It was so good. I recommend having a banana. Sorry, I'm starting to sound a bit crazy now.
No, not at all. Not at all. But I think again, that gets back into like this idea of diet culture and the dogmas and the right, like just people can get like in their pulpits and say, well, that's not keto, or that's not paleo, or that's not carnivore, right? And we forget that, listen, when we have spent years of our lives eating cakes, cookies, crisps, chips, whatever, to excess, to have a kiwi or a banana is 180 degrees difference.
Yeah.
Right. And when people show up and say, you shouldn't be doing that, I'm like, who are you, first and foremost? What are your, pedigrees? Like, how do we even know that you know what you're talking about? Like, I'd rather put that thing in my body and see how I feel, because I know what it feels like to binge on the other things.
Yeah.
Or overeat the other things. Or even if I'm not overeating the other things, I know what it feels like to not be able to stop, or what it feels like when it's in my body. But when I eat a kiwi, it's mind blowing. Like, that's not addiction. That's like, oh my God, your brain's like, oh, when was the last time you had a kiwi? Ever? Right? Like, it's new information.
The minefield of conflicting information is
noise. Yeah.
Just soul destroying. It's just soul destroying. Just, you see it everywhere. Yeah. Like, I've started to speak to a few people about it, especially over New Year's. There were a couple of people at work, I'm going to try this year, I'm going to do it this year, I'm going to be amazing, and I'm going to do it right, and I've said, have you considered that you've got an addiction, you're this age, and and just talked about what I've just talked to you about. So that's great, you know. And I'm not like preachy or pushy, but I do just like to say maybe consider it from that viewpoint, really.
Absolutely, because what I have found is that even if people, right, I don't think that everybody has the disease of addiction. I'm an addiction therapist. Like, I know the statistics. There's just no way everybody has the disease of addiction. But what I do know is that there are particular food products that are designed, right? They tell us that
Yeah,
you can't eat just one, right? Like things like that. Like they're designed to keep us going back for more. And so even if they are not addicted to the food, to consider that there are addictive qualities that have
yeah,
been purposely created so that these companies can sell more of their product, right? So even if we can like educate the public or our friends or our family members on from that perspective of like,
yeah, yeah,
you know, is that really like how you want to vote with your money, is like by continuing to buy Lay's potato chips or Cheez It crackers or, Snackwell cookies? Or would you rather invest in, like here they have CSAs, and I don't even remember what it stands for, but they're like co-op, like farm, like boxes of fruit, vegetables, whatever, and you like buy them like what it's like a subscription, and you pay for it once a month, and then you get like this box of locally grown
yeah.
whatever the seasonal fruit and veggies. Sometimes there's meat, that kind of thing. I'd rather vote with my dollars out.
I've got my first box coming this week, actually.
Oh,
I'm very excited. Local farm box is called round here. I'm very excited about that.
that's awesome. Oh, I'm excited for you. You'll have to keep us posted
Of
on like
course.
what you like about
Sure.
it, and whether or not you're going to keep going. So talk to me about, we heard a bit about what life was like before and like starting Weight Watchers at 13 and like all of that. What is life like now for the last month, changing the way that you're eating? You said you have a daughter, you have a partner. Like, what is a day in the life of Shelley like?
Well, I can get up in the morning, so I open my eyes and I can get up. Wow! You know, I really struggled to get up. If this was last year, I would have started having the sad lamp on for this month, and I haven't need to do that. Christmas was amazing. I mean, my mum came to stay, and normally I'd get up late and we'd cook some food and we'd lay about, but you know, we were up and we were driving about, we took the dog out, and I'm starting a new job in a couple of weeks, and I just think, thank goodness that I realized, you know, when I did, and I've been in recovery for a month now, because my thinking, you know, I just think clearly, and work is enjoyable and much easier. I'm better for my patients, for sure. I'm just thinking so much clearer, and I feel really motivated and just really, what's the word? Hopeful, maybe not hopeful, just hopeful for the future, really. You know, I work obviously in the health professions, and it can be really, I used to get really embarrassed if I would go to a patient's house when I was much bigger. You know, I'd be, how can people take health advice from me? I'm at risk of all of those health problems myself. But you know, now a day in my life is not worrying about that, which is great. To have that worry gone is just amazing. So that's what a day, and you know, and I am cooking lots. I love cooking, absolutely love cooking. And when you go on a new food plan, like I keep using the word soul destroying, it is soul destroying. You can't cook, and to be able to cook freely, you know, use healthy oils, because I'm picking all the information from all the diets over the years, and I know what works. So to be able to go, oh, tonight I'm going to make this and not measure this, I give no shits. So that's a day in my life.
Love it. I mean, it sounds like you're really enjoying yourself, that you're finding things that you're noticing are different. And it's like you said, it's like, I don't even know what the word is. I mean, the word that keeps coming to mind is joy, but I don't know if that's a word that you would use. But there's
It's
something,
joy.
yeah, there's something
It is
joyful
joyous.
about.
It's
Okay.
absolutely joyous.
Okay.
Absolutely. You know, I'm positive all the time. You know, I just think I've been poisoning myself. I genuinely feel like I have been poisoning myself for years. I mean, I'll give you an example.
Yeah.
The first time, when you're growing up and you're allowed to do that first bus journey into town with your friends. It's a big occasion. Well, I actually ended up in hospital the night of my first bus journey because I was given freedom and I had some money in my pocket. So I bought burgers and cakes and pizzas, and I pretty much just ate all day. And by the time I got home, I was feeling pretty sick. And by the evening, I was just in so much pain that my parents had to call an ambulance, and I ended up in hospital. Do you know what I mean? And that's the severity of poison. And I can really relate to Vera's book. Vera talks about, and I'll say in case anybody hasn't heard the Food Junkies book, she talks about when she worked as a carer and she'd take their food, and when she worked in a shop. And I used to work in a garage, and I was terrible for stealing the chocolate bars. And I used to work for years in care homes, and my God, you didn't want me in the house the night of a big shop, because I'd eat all the crisps, all the chocolate bars, just through having one and then sitting down and then saying, no, I won't have any more, going straight back, eat another one, sitting down, oh, that's awful. And it's just that back. And so I just feel like I'm not poisoning myself anymore. I'm not doing it anymore. And I think, thank God, that I'm not going to pass this on to my daughter. Do you know what I mean? I think, thank God, and the Christmas tree's coming down later on, but it's still got Christmas chocolates on it.
What are you
Because
going
we
to do
used to
with those?
have,
Where are those going?
those are going in a bowl on the side. So if they want them at some point, they can have them. But I just think my daughter, bless her heart, she's 13. She is not diving on that bowl and eating them all in one go. And that makes me so happy. I used to eat all the chocolates off the tree, and then my mum would line me and my brother and sister up, and it would be, who's eating all the chocolates? You're not going until I hear who's eating all the chocolates. And this happened several times, and we all knew it was me. My brother and sister knew it was me, my mum knew it was me, and I just used to have to stand there till I broke and confess that it was me.
Yeah. Uh-huh.
So just that's a day in my life, just feeling just so relieved.
Yeah.
Just so relieved that I'm not passing it on to her. And like I say, with the reading, I've got it down now. I'm eating the way that I'm eating. So the next thing I'm doing is I've actually gone back to, have you ever heard of a guy called Mark David? I think it is. He's in America.
Yes, I've heard of Mark David.
The
Yep.
Institute of Psychological Eating, isn't it?
Yes. Yep.
So I read that book years ago, and I did, oh my God, that would have been 2018, I think. So I was reading a bit of his book last night, just to start learning how to eat more mindfully, really, because I'm still cooking food, but I'll pop it down. And I'm still like, I'm busy, rush, rush, rush. So the next step for me is to really slow it down now. I'm not
Absolutely.
putting pressure on myself. If that's this week, that's great. If it's next week, it's great. So I think the
Yeah.
key at the moment is no more pressure.
Yes. Right. It's just knowing that's what you want to do, and then having an intention and being mindful of that, right? Like
Yeah.
I often will ask my clients just to initially start out timing themselves just to see how long it takes them to eat a meal, right?
Yeah.
And a lot of times they're like, oh, I've whipped it down in 2 minutes, 5 minutes, right? It's something pretty quick. And then we say, like, okay, could we stretch that to 6 minutes?
Okay.
Stretch that to 7 minutes, right? And sometimes I just have them set a timer so that they can see, that they can glance up at, because we don't want you distracted by like constantly looking at it. And we certainly don't want you distracted looking at these, YouTube or something on the TV or, whatever it might be.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
just to be like present with your food, like, using the opposite hand sometimes can really slow us down. Like knife and fork everything to like cut everything into bits, little tricks along the way just to slow it down. And then what's so funny is like I have clients come back and they're like, I look forward to the 20 minutes I'm going to take to eat my meal. And
Really?
anything less than that really feels not okay. No, right, like that's a process.
I'm looking forward to that. I really struggle with it at the moment. I don't know if it's because I'm pretty much like a bloody cheerleader at the moment. I'm like, woo, and I don't know if it's because I'm like that about it, that I just need to calm down now. I think the first 3 weeks, I'd say I was really on a high, like really, I've got there. I just feel like I've got there. I know what has happened and what's going on. And I think you get really high. And of course, you've got to come down from that. I can't spend the rest of my life like, I've discovered the answer. It'd be ridiculous. So I had a couple of occasions last week I was tired, and I was getting pretty narky, really. And I thought, well, what comes up must come down. And I had a couple of occasions where I was frightened, and I was thinking, well, what if I forget again? What if I forget that I'm a food addict and I go back to those weekends and those weeks of not knowing? So that's why I've joined the support group, and I try and get there 3 times a week. And I just would like to think I'll be there for many years, because there's a great group of people who are all in the same boat. And I tried OA in the past. That was 2015, I think we tried OA, but that didn't click either. Like, I'm in OA and I still hasn't quite clicked. So yeah, that group of people are amazing and all working really hard, and it's good to sit in a group. I think I 99.5% would say that I don't need individual therapy for this. And to be in a group, to just be hearing, well, I've struggled with this week and this is how I've dealt with it, is absolutely brilliant. And I love it because everybody's American and Canadian. So I'm like, it's just like a comedy hour for me, really.
Yes, and what's so interesting about that is that we tried to create times for group that would be better. Well, like that would accommodate like UK and later time zones as well. So,
Yeah.
The hope is that we will become even more international for sure. And I just appreciate that you're there because you contribute to that. And
not very well this week though. I was cooking at the same time and I was all flailing my arms around. That's what I don't think I explained it very well. So something happened this week. In the group last week, I was saying, I've got to this point, that's great. Now I've been listening to the Food Junkies podcasts, which are brilliant. But I think there were 3 in a row. 1 week was keto, 1 week was carnivore. And it's like we're saying, isn't it, that diet culture noise? Now, this is what I'm learning that you need to look out for when you're a food addict. It just takes one person to say something and that little addict will just grab onto it. So somebody said, at this point, you don't be on a diet. just work out which are your foods that are a definite no-go. So anything sugar for me is a definite red flag no. And I'd forgotten about my sheet of paper that I was following, because Christmas happened, so it gets a bit chaotic. That's now printed out and on my kitchen wall, because I was like, well, if I'm discovering what my drug foods are, I'd better try those crisps because they've got no added sugars in. So I'll just try to see if that's a no-go or not. So I'm eating these chips and my brain is going, this is not a food, this is a no-go red food. And my addict head is going, well, you've had them, you've started opening them, finish the bag, and then my other brain kicks in and says, you say goodbye to them now. And actually, back at the start, it worked out really well, because I went onto the Facebook group first and said, hi, I'm realizing this is probably me and I feel sick. I feel like I need to try this, but I'm taking my daughter to Disneyland Paris for the weekend. And this is a big deal. We've been saving for a couple of years. We've been looking at Mickey bloody waffles on TikTok. Do you know what I mean? And we've decided on this day it's Mickey waffles here, and on this day we're going to this cafe and it's these big Mickey bloody donuts with ears. And people were saying, give up before you go. And some people were like, and I was just really conflicted. So anyway, I went in with nuts and cheese in my bag. And actually what I did was I just ate a few things with her, but I took it as a really ceremonious thing and a real symbolic thing. And that was my goodbye. Do you know what I mean? And I think that did me really good. It was like, goodbye shit food. We were tired, so I took her into Planet Hollywood because she had a real sugar lull, and we ordered this ultimate brownie thing, and it came out in this thing that was bigger than my bloody head, and we're not used to that in this country. We're not used to it, but it was great. It was my last supper, really. So I feel glad that I did that, because I can look back at that time now and say, well, that was my goodbye, really. Sorry if I'm going off in tangent.
Not at all. Not at all. So knowing, again, thinking about where you came from, how things are now, what are things that you do like on the daily that contribute to like your recovery? Are you a person who food preps? Do you weigh and measure? Do you go to meetings? Do you journal? Like, what are the things that kind of go into like keeping you on track for like moving in the direction you want to go?
So I have Greek yogurt and nuts and blueberries in the morning, and that's my breakfast. Now I'm happy with that at the moment. It doesn't mean that I eat lots of other stuff. I'm happy that's my breakfast. So I have my breakfast. Then I'm trying to do the breakfast, lunch, dinner, just because I've read that works in recovery. So I'm doing that. So I make sure that there's always stuff in my fridge for a healthy lunch and a home meal roll. I might have that, I might not. And then I'm food prepping. When I cook, I make sure that I've got enough to put in the freezer so that I don't ever get caught out. I ended up staying extra one day somewhere over Christmas, and I ended up having to have the nuts and the yogurt twice, but I didn't give a shit. I was like, you just eating your meal, it doesn't matter that it's that. So that's the food side of recovery. The support group is invaluable. That is keeping me remembering till it's embedded, and I'm going to do the food cravings course that starts this Saturday with Jennifer, because that's at the moment I'm not focusing too much about the hunger. I'm eating my meals at this time. If I'm not hungry, it doesn't bloody matter. I'm not going to miss that meal. That's important to me at the moment. So then I can start bringing in I'm going to eat. Perhaps I'm not hungry. Perhaps that is a craving. I've lived with cravings. I've gone from being hospitalized to Euro Disney with 400 bloody diets in between. So I know what a food craving is. I know that it's completely overpowering, but I want to do that course so that I've got as much, like, I can't stop saying knowledge is power, definitely, isn't it? You know, and that's what my recovery on a daily basis looks like. You know, and it's drinking lots of water as well.
Right. I know I always have my big old hydro flask, and I try to do at least 2 of them a day.
Yeah,
Yep.
I have to have this. If I put a glass of water down at home, the dog drinks it. So I
Oh
even have to
no.
have these at home. Yeah, so that's what it looks like on a day-to-day basis, lots of preparation. But you were saying about food journaling and weighing and measuring, and I don't know about other people, but I do wonder if I've got a slight bit of post-traumatic stress disorder after all of this, and it wouldn't surprise me because Jennifer sent out some homework to do ready for the cravings course, and part of it is to food journal, and I know that the course is on Saturday, and I will start it from tomorrow, those words, but that's in a different context. But when I first read that, I was like, oh my God, no, please, you know, please don't make me write down anything else. But I've swapped my thinking about that and thought, you know, it's different, you know.
Yeah, this is about collecting data, right? Like, what
Yeah,
are the things that I'm eating, and am I having cravings later? Like you were
yeah,
saying, like when you were testing out the crisps, and there was, right, your prefrontal cortex, like this higher order thinking brain was like, nope, that's a red food. And then your limbic system was like, but you already opened the bag. Go ahead and finish. Right?
say goodbye to those crisps. They're on
Right?
the
Yeah.
red list now.
Yeah. So
And
that,
you know, it's not just the crisps, is it? Like you eat those foods and it's like straight away you're like, these are going on the red list.
yes. So this is like,
But
it's like conducting a science experiment and like writing down your observations, right? So it's like just noticing while you're eating. And then afterwards, are there cravings? Are you having food thoughts? That kind of thing. I
okay,
imagine is the
yeah,
intention behind that kind of thing. Because I agree, I'm with you, Shelley. Like I spent years meticulously in notebooks, writing down, like planning my food, counting macros, all of that stuff. And I'm finally at a point where I'm like, I just want to be able to prepare a meal and eat it and not worry
yeah.
about calories, about how many grams of protein are in it, how many grams of fat, how many grams of carbs. Like I just want to eat, because I'm not eating those things that I would have like turned into like overeating or binging, right? I'm eating
Yeah.
whole foods too. And so I'm with you and I totally agree. But I think you're right. With this, there's a
It
different
is
intention
different.
behind it. Mhm.
Yeah.
Yep, absolutely. Because I'm with you. I fully agree. So before I let you go, I'm
Yeah.
curious to know, what did you need to hear when you were first starting this journey? Like if you could tell a younger version of yourself, even if it was just a month ago, years ago, or even if you're talking to the person who hasn't started their journey yet or is very brand new, like what did you maybe need to hear at the beginning that was helpful?
I would say relax, take your time, really. There is so much information out there. I mean, I've been unsubscribing left, right, and center this week with this conference, and they're great conferences, but not for me right now. When you're starting out, I would say read Vera's book first. I would say listen to the first Food Junkies podcasts and then leave it before just leave it for a while. And I would come over to you guys. I would say come over to Sweet Sobriety, and I, need to tell people that you haven't paid me and there's a fly here in any way to say that whatsoever, but just to get yourself into a really good support group that works for you to keep coming back, and just to enjoy it, just to think actually you have got there, you have got there, and just stay there. Do you know what I mean? Just be organized. Just, if you can, get that shit out of your house. Just get the shit out of your house. Don't give a shit if you're gonna put on a couple of pounds because you're eating more nuts and cheese. Just bloody eat nuts and cheese all day to get you through the first bit, because it all levels out. But just stick with it. And if you're hearing if food addicts on your radar, if you're thinking I might be a food addict, and you've done a questionnaire and, oh yes, I'm a food addict, if you know that you cannot control your eating, if you know that you are putting stuff in the bin, if you are hiding stuff from your partner, if you are up, down, up, down, up, down, you most likely have a food addiction or are addicted to foods. Then do the work, read the book, listen to the podcast, don't ignore it for another 5 fucking years. Excuse my language. I'm starting to swear now. It's fair, do you know what I mean? I'm surprised.
I love it.
We're seeing
Shelley is coming out. We're getting the real deal.
Do you know what I mean? And just shut the noise the fuck up. I'm sorry. Just shut up with all of it. Just piss off. That's what I'd say.
I love it, because ultimately what I'm hearing your message to be is, like you said, relax.
Yeah.
You have the basic information, right? Like chances are somewhere inside, something's not right.
Yeah.
Shut down, get a little bit of whatever support, whatever it is you need. Shut down the noise, take the steps, do the action.
Yeah.
Oh, I love it.
Sure.
Thank you.
And it doesn't matter if after the first week you fall face first into there's a bowl of chocolate. Take your face out that bowl of chocolate, chop that chocolate out the fucking door and do it again.
That's right. That's right. Oh, Shelley, I'm so glad to have you along on this journey in our group, and for allowing me and Clarissa to walk alongside you. And thank you so much for your willingness to come here and do this kind of interview, because I'm a big believer that when we tell our stories, right, like people use our stories as like a blueprint or a map for theirs, right? And so when we recover out loud, other people don't suffer in silence. And so I just appreciate you so much today.
Thanks, Molly.
Thank you.
If you like what you heard today, please remember to like, comment, share, and subscribe. Thank you for watching.